Are you a man who wonders, how do I get my wife to respect me more? And if you've ever asked yourself this question, this is smart of you, because respect is absolutely necessary to keep your wife's mental attraction to you strong. So working towards increasing that level of respect your wife has for you is always a smart move. So today I'm going to share with you 5 traits that are absolutely required for a wife to respect you. Now, if you've been watching me at all for any period of time, you will know that I always have your back. But when women complain about the lack of leadership from their husbands, most of the time their complaints are valid. And I say this because most of the time, frame and leadership are lacking. So when you start becoming more proactive, because the bar is so low, even small improvements are going to get your wife's attention. And then she will start respecting you more because she's going to view you as the strong and capable man that you are. So what are these top 5 characteristics or traits that every man should pursue or increase that will garner a higher level of respect from his wife? While there are many, I'm going to share with you today my top 5. And these top 5 are being proactive, trustworthy, reliable, decisive, and capable. The biggest difference between a man who is a great leader and one who is not is that a leader is proactive, while the other is passive or reactive. Think about an airplane pilot. Before the pilot takes off with hundreds of people underneath his care, what does he do? He has a checklist or routine that prevents as many as possible avoidable disasters. His checklist, his routine, provides a solid framework in which he can lessen the chances of catastrophic disasters from happening in the first place. Now, this doesn't mean that there won't be any disasters at all. And when those arise, he will use his skills and his trainings to deal with them as they come. But his proactive measure of going through a standard checklist and routine before every flight greatly reduces that number of potentially catastrophic incidents from happening in the first place. So the question is, what are you doing in your marriage to avoid disaster before they begin? Maybe you haven't really been proactive. Maybe you're stuck more in a passive or reactive mode where you're just simply putting out fires as they come up. And isn't it the truth that most of those fires are brought to you courtesy of your wife? But instead of thanking her for bringing something to your attention, most of the time you get mad. You think, why is she always bringing up issues? Why does she nag and complain so much? Why can't she just be thankful? She thinks she has concerns, she should try being me. Or have you just mentally locked yourself on the bridge of the ship, ignoring what's happening outside of yourself? So if you're not doing some kind of proactive assessment on yourself, in your marriage, in your relationship with your wife and your children, you are in passive or reactive mode. And that is not a characteristic of being a great leader. So many marital issues could be avoided with just a small amount of proactivity. But far too many men live in a passive or reactive mode, and their marriage reflects it. So a captain is not passive. He doesn't stay on the bridge and ignore what's going on with his ship. He proactively schedules and meets with his first officer and other crew members. He has an open door policy that allows him to receive insights and input from his crew. A captain should always constantly assess the ship, the environment, the crew, the passengers. He knows it's all underneath his care. So how proactive are you? So let's talk about the 3 levels of proactivity. Level 1 is you're not proactive at all. You are 100% completely passive or reactive. You have put on blinders and actively avoid problems. In fact, you think problems are to be avoided at all costs. You wait for them to come to you, and when they do arrive, you shoot the messenger. Level 2 is that you're still primarily passive or reactive, but you're receptive to engagement when asked. So on the whole, you're still walking around with blinders to your environment. You will help your wife when she asks for it. But even level 2 is not actual leadership. You're not actually leading, but it's better than nothing. And level 3 is the highest level. This is where you are actually leading. This is you being proactive. So on level 3, you are proactive by nature the majority of the time. You scan the environment. You maintain situational awareness of how your ship is operating, and you make moves to correct or address issues before anyone has to point them out to you. You view communication with your wife and any problems that may arise as neutral or positive because You know that at least these issues are getting addressed now before they get worse. And you don't shoot the messenger. You don't get mad at your wife for bringing problems to you. You're actually grateful that you have the ability to address them when they're smaller. And I think most men are on level 2. Most men will step up when their wife asks them to, but it's just not a level with really high leadership that commands a whole lot of respect. It's still mainly a passive position. So the goal here is to not just simply call yourself a captain, but to actually behave as one as well. So if you think about the behavior of a captain of a ship, does he just see litter on the ground and walk by it? Or would he stop and pick it up? He might think to himself, wow, that janitor sure is slacking today. He probably does have that thought as he does it, but he will stop on his way from point A to point B, pick up the litter and go to this trash can. And on the way to the trash can, he might say, oh my gosh, this trash is overflowing. And then he'll have to go and find out who's in charge of that and get that issue addressed. But always, when he's going from point A to point B, there's always a situational awareness of the environment and what's going on. And he will correct things along the way that need to be corrected. So if you want your wife to have a high level of respect for you, you can't simply wait for her to ask for your help. You have to use your eyeballs. Step out of your mental bubble that you're living in as a man and start scanning your house and your marriage. She shouldn't have to remind you of tasks that are yours in the marriage. You should be able to look at the environment and see that it's a disaster. You should be able to just look and see that something's not working and step in and assess what needs to be done to get the ship operating right. She shouldn't have to ask you to watch the kids so she could take a bath. You should be able to look at her and think this woman doesn't have the proper time she needs to take care of herself. She shouldn't have to ask you to take her out on a date once in a while. You should know that marriage requires constant nurturing and that you need to proactively set those up. You shouldn't have to ask her if she's had a rough day with the kids. Her attitude and exhausted demeanor should make that perfectly clear. If you just use the power of intentional observation, it would take your marriage up to a whole nother level. But most men make the mistake of offloading the entire operations of the marriage onto their wife's shoulders. And that's exhausting for a woman. And this is especially true for those guys who believe that being a great husband simply means going to work and earning a paycheck. These men mistakenly believe that their day ends at 5 p.m. and that they get to go home and just relax. And yes, that's true to an extent. But just because you've worked a tough day doesn't mean you get to mentally check out from 5 to 10 p.m. each night, especially when your wife works as well, whether that's inside the home or outside the home. When you mentally check out from 5 to 10 p.m. and leave everything on your wife's shoulders, she's going to feel like she's a single mother who has to run the entire ship because the captain has mentally abandoned the ship. This lack of involvement in the activities and the responsibilities at home will cause her to view you as incompetent. And she's going to be sexually turned off. Every time she has to ask you for help or to remind you to do something, it's going to chip away at her perception of you as a competent man. And along with it, the level of respect that she has for you. The need to remind you to do things, to actually follow through on doing the things you said that you were going to do. Isn't that how a mother interacts with her children? Your actions will determine if she's going to view you as a man or a boy. There's seldom an in-between here, guys. Like if she views you as a child, that's a surefire way to shut down her nether regions. I remember a time I had to tell Michael of something having to do with the kids' school. I think it might have been the daddy-daughter dance. And it wasn't something that he normally would have been privy to because he's in charge of the kids' sports and I'm in charge of the kids' school. I'm like, don't worry about the kids' school stuff. I've got it. If it's something that involves you, I'll let you know. So that's what I was doing. I was letting him know. So I walked into the bathroom where he was and I told him of the upcoming school event. And so he tells me, well, just remind me when it gets closer. And I was like, no, this is why I'm telling you now. So I don't have to remind you. This is it. I'm telling you now. So then he says to me, well, I don't know why you're being so unsupportive. And I'm like, well, why do I need to be your brain? Isn't that what technology is for? If you need a reminder, put it in your calendar on your phone. This makes no sense to me. Why you need me to be a human reminder when we have technology that can do the same thing. So then he counters with, well, I don't know why we can't just be reminders for each other, why we can't be supportive of each other and to serve as a backup so that things don't get missed. You can make sure that I don't miss things with baseball and I can make sure that you don't miss things with school. But in my mind, that just defeated the whole purpose of even having someone assigned to those tasks. Because if we both just have to be on top of everything and I have to ask, like, did you see that we're assigned snack duty on this day? Like, if I'm going to have to keep on top of it anyway, like what's the point of having anybody assigned to it? It actually seems to me like it would create double the work, because then now I have to not only check the schedules, then I have to ask him if he checked them and he's on it as well. Like, it just, in my mind, this made no sense. So it became pretty clear that we were viewing this from two different perspectives. And it was also pretty clear that neither one of us were going to be swayed to the other side. So I went quiet for a minute. And after a few seconds, he said, well, you're just going to do what you're going to do anyway. So in that moment, he believed that I was just being stubborn and defiant for shits and giggles. But where my mind was at in that moment was that I was having this internal debate with myself. And what I was wrestling with was thinking about the fact that if I felt I had to babysit him and tasks that are his is going to severely damage my perception of him as a man, which is then going to impact my level of respect that I would have for him. So do I stand my ground and let him be upset with me? Or do I agree to remind him, which is going to cause me to view him in a negative light? Which one is worse for our relationship? I chose to let him be mad at me because I just knew I was going to lose too much respect for him if I had to serve as his mother in that capacity. So you're going to have to be very careful that you're not operating as a man in a way that causes your wife to perceive you as a child. So when you walk in the door after work, use that situational awareness. Scan the environment. If you see that the trash is full, don't wait for her to ask. Take it out. If you see that there's dishes in the sink, load them in the dishwasher. If you hear her yelling at the kids, don't just sit there thinking, she sounds like she's got it covered. Get up and get involved. At least stand by her side so she knows that you have her back. Let her see you proactively handling life without her having to ask. Because while you helping when she asks is better than nothing, you're still then in a mother-son dynamic. It still places the burden of leadership on her. She's still the one that has to run the ship because the captain only comes around when she calls. So while each member of the family has their own delegated responsibilities, if there's a job that's not being done, it's still on the captain to find a solution to make it happen. However, the typical response that I get from men is that they just simply throw their hands up and say, well, what can I do? I just keep telling her and she never listens to me. She's just going to do what she wants to do, just like my husband told me, right? This is not how a captain should handle the situation. A captain's job is one of ultimate accountability, which means that if the first solution does not work, then he needs to find a different one. Now, there are several options here. He should probably start with a discussion. But if talking it out doesn't work, then we are going to have to come up with a different solution, like finding a replacement or hiring someone else to do the job. So if your wife doesn't live up to her responsibilities within the marriage, it's then upon you, the captain, to find a different solution, because what needs to get done still needs to get done. If you have a crew member who is chronically insubordinate, one who refuses to do what the captain says to do, there usually is some sort of consequence, whether that's being fired or being replaced or some other kind of punitive response that will curtail future insubordinate behavior. So if there's no consequences, nothing for a crew member to fear, then what's the point of calling yourself a captain? That's somebody that doesn't have any authority at all. And this is where marriage gets really difficult, because the stakes of implementing consequences can be quite steep. And this is why I always say that a man has to be willing to walk, because without consequences, he has no leverage. Let me give you an example of a common situation that I hear from quite a few of you guys. I often hear from men, especially when they have a wife who is in the stage of menopause and her sex life has just completely taken a dump. So he will ask her to make an appointment to get her hormones checked. But despite bringing it up several times, it just never happens. And this lack of effort is really frustrating for the husband, because he'll say, like, well, what can I do here? I brought it up, but she just refuses. She won't do anything about it. But here's the thing. She's not doing it because she doesn't view it as a problem. If it bothered her enough, she would have already done something about it. So if after a discussion or two happens and there's no effort or movement on her part, then you're going to need to find a different solution. And usually this means that you're going to have to be the one who searches for doctors. You're going to have to be the one who makes the appointment. You're going to have to be the one that puts on the calendar, maybe even drive her there. And this may be irritating to you as a guy because you're like, she's a grown woman. She's perfectly capable of doing these things, and that's true. But if the members of your crew won't do what they need to do, the things that you have tasked them to do as the captain, those things still need to get done. The captain still has the ultimate accountability. And remember when I talked about how women have just hundreds of open tabs all the time and that they never close. And in an effort to help her alleviate some of that mental load, I had recommended that you ask her what she needs help with. That was said in an effort to take you purely out of a passive mode and at least put you at a level 2, where there's at least a little bit of proactivity on your side, because that's far better than waiting for her to have to come to you and ask for your help. Most women will never ask for help, but they are going to feel resentful and they are going to feel alone in the marriage, like she's a married single woman. So proactively start supporting your wife in her responsibilities and assignments. And you can command the highest level of respect from her by simply not making her ask at all. So let's talk strategy here for a minute. One of the most effective ways to demonstrate leadership without daily effort is to hold a weekly fireside chat. And this is maybe just like a 30-minute time that you set aside once a week to come together and discuss the previous week. Things they did that made you feel loved, things that are concerns, what's going on with you, what's going on with the kids. Think of it as a pilot's checklist to assess what's working, what's not. But I really want you to incorporate positive things. This isn't like Festivus, where it's just like an airing of grievances. That's a Seinfeld reference.
The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people. Now, you're going to hear about it.
So you're not going to use this as time to just solely air grievances, but also to highlight the things that she did right, the things that are working for you. What's really nice about this too is that if there's any concerns, she can simply kind of table those to where she knows that she's going to be able to be heard on 1 day a week. So 6 days a week is nothing but positivity, right? And if there's a concern, she can write it down and just bring it to you on Sundays or whatever day you make your fireside chat. So this strategy is a great way to ensure there's like 6 days of smoothness, where it's not every single day something bad's being brought up, because that's draining on both of you. It's not really what we hope to achieve in your marriage. So the fireside chat once a week is a really great strategy to implement. Moving on to number 2, you must be trustworthy. A woman is not going to follow a man she doesn't trust. I mean, that would be kind of dumb if she did, right? Good leaders build trust through being reliable, consistent, and congruent in words and actions. They are also humble. They know that they don't know everything, and they will have an open door policy so communications can continue to flow. Leadership is not about barking out commands or expecting her to have blind obedience, saying, yes, yes, sir. Sure, once the captain has made his decision, that would be the appropriate response. But until that happens, trust is going to play a big role in how a woman views her husband's leadership. And most men, I believe, would claim themselves to be trustworthy. But when it comes to keeping their word, most men fall short in ways that they don't realize. And here's what I mean. Every time you tell your wife that you'll do something, then you forget, or you delay, or you need a reminder, you signal to your wife that your word is not reliable. And you may think like, well, I meant to do it. It's just a small thing. But to her, those small things are the big things. If you can't follow through on minor promises, why should she trust you with major ones? The problem typically lies in that you just lack specificity. And let's take the common example of a woman coming and asking you to take out the trash. If your wife comes to you and asks you to take out the trash and you say, sure. And for the record, when a woman asks you to do anything, she's not talking about later. She is talking about like right now. So if you simply tell her, sure, yeah, I'll do it, but you're busy in the moment, and so you get delayed 15, 20, 30 minutes, and 30 minutes she walks by and the trash is still there, she's going to be frustrated, and she's going to have to come and remind you, and suddenly you're in this mother-son dynamic. The problem here was that you were vague. Without any kind of clear timeline, your wife has to still mentally track that task. It keeps that mental tab open in her brain. So these small moments are going to shape how she perceives your reliability. So what's the solve here? Well, the solve is that you're going to have to be very time specific. When you agree to a task, you must state when you're going to do it. For example, you could tell her, I'll take out the trash in 10 minutes. And if you cannot do what she's asking you to do, you have to tell her no. It is far better for you to say, no, I can't do it right now. I'll get to it later tonight, or to say no altogether. It is far better to do that than to say yes and not follow through. And I know this can be difficult in and of itself because saying no is going to create problems all of their own. And men want to avoid problems at all costs. But telling her no lets her know that she doesn't always get what she wants. It also tells her that she doesn't get to dictate the time in which you do the thing that you were asked to do. Saying no or telling her when you will do it is a frame reinforcement tool. And I want to be clear, just because I'm telling you to be very specific in your wording of when you're going to do something does not mean that I am saying that you are supposed to say yes to your wife's every request. But if you do, you must be very time specific in your communication. That is going to invoke a high level of respect. And also when she comes to you and requests you to do something, there are some ways in which you can respond that are going to be received and perceived as super sexy, because these are the phrases that tell women that you're a leader. And so what I want you to do is to try one of these. Consider it done. I'm on it. I'll take care of it. You can count on me. I've got it covered, and I'll make it happen. Can you feel the strength of those statements versus a standard response of okay or sure? Then you have to make sure to actually follow through. And if you need to set reminders or create systems for yourself to make it happen, use technology. It's your friend. But no matter what, once you say one of those phrases, you better damn well make sure that you follow through. Being trustworthy and keeping your word, not just in your marriage, but to yourself, to others, to your children, it creates trust, and trust creates a high level of respect. But if you don't, her level of respect for you will dwindle. And it dwindles away little by little until there's nothing left. But when you are a man of your word, it's just such a relief for a woman because she knows that your words and your actions align. And so when you tell her, don't worry about it, babe, I've got it, she will think to herself, well, damn straight he does. Number 3 is that you must be reliable and consistent. What happens if you have the first 2 qualities, being proactive and trustworthy, but you're only proactive and trustworthy here and there? You're not consistent. Well, that's actually probably worse than being consistently bad. At least if you were consistently awful, she would know what to expect. But if some days you're proactive and trustworthy and other days you're not, but she doesn't know what to do with that. She has no idea what guy to expect that day. Is it Mr. Proactivity, Mr. Trustworthy, or is it Mr. Unreliable? This is one of the reasons why women are attracted to bad boys but rarely marry them. They love their confidence. They think they're fun. They love their I don't give a fuck attitude. But those guys aren't reliable and consistent. And you just can't build a family with that kind of man. For short-term fun, sure. But for long-term, consistency and reliability win out every time. But if you can merge these 2 elements together, that's like a magical unicorn of a man for a woman, because that's what they're looking for. We naturally understand that reliability and consistency is a necessary environment for children. And didn't I just tell you earlier that women are just essentially children in bigger bodies? Your wife's just not going to feel safe in your relationship if she doesn't know that your behavior and your actions are consistent. And this doesn't mean that you have to be perfect, like you're a robot. We know you're human. But just really start watching it if what you say aligns to what you do. A quick example of this is when you tell your wife or your kids that you love them and would die for them, but at the same time, you're obese. You can't say you do anything to provide and protect for your family, but you are unwilling to eat right or hit the gym. So if you can spot those incongruent areas of your life and start working towards fixing those, your consistency allows your wife to relax because she will actually truly believe she can rely on you today, the next day, and the day after that. Number 4, a man must be decisive. There is nothing compelling or sexy about a man who can't make decisions quickly. And this indecision places a heavy burden on your wife because Many times she can't make her next move until she has the answer. Your indecision becomes a bottleneck, leaving her in a state of limbo. And I understand that sometimes you need to have some time to think about things, those with a long-term impact. But on the day-to-day stuff, a man's indecisiveness is just flat irritating. Most things are not life or death situations. So don't delay decisions if you want your wife to maintain a high level of respect for you. And what's worse than not making a decision is when you kick the decision back on her. The most common example of this is when a wife will ask you what you want for dinner. Or she may even give you a choice like between chicken and fish. And thinking you're being helpful, you'll say to her, well, I don't care, or whatever you want. But that is not going to be viewed in her eyes as being helpful or considerate at all. What it will do is cause her to ask the question of, why can't this man not make such a simple decision? Why is it always on me? All because you simply couldn't tell her, chicken sounds great. If you honestly don't care, just choose the first option. That could be your new default response. But give her an answer already. If she wanted to be the one to decide, she wouldn't have asked you in the first place. Women do not find wishy-washy men attractive. So banish the phrases, I don't care, you decide, whatever you want from your vocabulary. And just watch how much more your wife will respect you. Number 5 is capable. Let's take a moment here to watch this clip from Modern Family.
Where do you want it?
I know a lot of people think that I'm attracted to Jay because of his money, but they're wrong. I'm attracted to him because he's sexy, and he's never been sexier than today. The suit, the carrying of the boxes.
No, you listen to me. You've had my wife's car 4 days. Figure out what that screeching noise is, or you'll be making one yourself.
The yelling on the phone.
Give me that.
And the drilling. So much drilling.
One of the hottest and sexiest things about men is their sheer capabilities to get shit done. Now, if you want to turn a woman on, go do some man shit. Find something around the house that needs to be fixed, pull out the drill, and get to work. And if your body's on point, take your shirt off and wear your hat backwards. That certainly helps. But there are guys out there who have wives that are more handy and capable than they are. And if that's you, you should be ashamed of yourself. Imagine coming home and finding your wife trying to fix the ceiling fan that she asked you to fix multiple times, but then you never came through. So she felt like she had to man up and do it herself. If your wife is consistently more capable than you in multiple areas, if she can outdo you in her capabilities, if she's taking charge all the time, it's going to erode her respect for you. A woman wants to feel confident in your abilities to step up and not feel like she chose someone who's less capable than she is. Women are drawn to capable men because it fosters a sense of safety and security. We'll ask things like, if the zompocalypse were to happen today, would I be able to survive with this man? I know that's kind of an extreme example, but that's at least where my brain has gone to at times. Your physical and mental skills are a huge turn on. So let me go ahead and share with you this story that I received in the comment section of one of my videos. So I had something interesting happen yesterday. On vacation, pulling a camper, I blew a tire on the camper, got pulled over, and I put the spare on and do my thing. Wife says, what do I need to do? I said, take a picture of the tire size and call the next town tire shop and see if they got one. They didn't, but checked, and next town over had one. So we went and got it and continued on the trip. Wife says, you did that in 17 minutes. I said, yeah, one thing had issues, so it slowed me down. She's like, WTF, you're 60 and you didn't even blink. You just boom, took care of it and had me do the administration and never even cussed. I'm so turned on right now. I'm like, okay, but I'll take the win. It was a real good night. Crazy. I've changed 100 tires in my life. Never thought it would be the trigger. What turned on this wife in this story is the fact that she personally saw how capable her man was. And being capable doesn't mean you have to be an expert in everything. Like YouTube can guide you through most fixes, but you must be willing to try or to know when it's above your pay grade and call a professional. So capability should not be equated to mean that you have to do everything yourself, but it does mean that you need to have the ability to solve problems. and to not always be held hostage to other men coming in and saving the day. So what do you think about these 5 characteristics? Do you agree that these would enhance your wife's level of respect for you? Let me know in the comments, and make sure to stick around for this next video, which YouTube seems to think you're gonna really love. And with that, I'll see you next time.